Okay, so following on from the last video, I realised it might be better to give a bit more of an overview of the tactic I'm trying to use here, the direction we're trying, or the tools we're trying to use. I was talking in the last video about thought structures and about this castle, this hyperspheric castle, and I thought we could go a bit into the idea of what a thought space or structure could be. And I suppose I'm attracted to this. It's something which is used in a lot of philosophy, I suppose. You can think of Plato's Cave. There's always metaphors being used of and how you use you see in the cave you have the prisoners looking at the shadows, and they have one structure to their thought which then gets transformed, and you just have a picture of that thought transforming as they move further up to the cave and see the puppets, and then move again outside the cave. Or Deleuze and Guattari's rhizome, where they're talking about this like recalibration of structure into something where there's a thousand plateaus where each truth doesn't have to sit at the top of a structure, and can be simultaneously intertwined, moving towards a different kind of thought. There's Nietzsche's metamorphosis of the spirit, where you've got the camel, the lion, and the child, and you can see the orientation to the world changing through each stage as they move through that. I guess where I was getting the castle from was a reaction to hearing a video by John David Ebert called Art After Metaphysics, and a few of his other videos of his I found on YouTube. And so John David Ebert's looking at a couple of things. One is this idea of there being a post-metaphysical age, metaphysical or pre-metaphysical age, and the other is an idea about that he's using from Sloterdijk, where he's talking about spheres. So I guess, in terms of the metaphysical and post-metaphysical, he looks at Heidegger, who is also looking back at Nietzsche and saying that that's could be a pivot point where we can see us moving from a metaphysical space into a post-metaphysical space, where the transcendental signifieds that have held together society, such as Christianity or other major world religions, or a Newtonian Cartesian dimensional space where everything can be quantified, towards something which is more disintegrated, perhaps, where there is no underlying structure. There's no claimable truth that's transcendental. You can't say that no one would say that the claimability of absolute truth is questioned. Whether or not that disproves it is another question. So where are we? So in this space, Ebert is saying that we've now found ourselves in a midden heap of transcendental signifieds. The signifieds have been pulled away from their claims of truth, and now we have a rubbish heap of all these parts, these signifiers that perhaps don't have anything behind them anymore. And in this age, we have to pull these parts together and recreate our own meanings from them. And they may not necessarily be used in the same way that they used to be used. and I guess the way that these parts are used are now we all have our own like sphere of meaning, so that we bring those parts to be used in, and what so he's using Sloterdijk's spherology theory that where in this metaphysical age he's looking back to that where the whole world is in a sort of big sphere that's structuring everything is locatable within that, and there's nothing beyond that. Sort of you have the levels of, you know, Dante's Inferno, moving up towards paradise at the top, and then that sort of world sphere is sort of enclosing everything. And anyway, I'll talk about the problems with some of these, trying to like fit everything into this in a sec. But so then that sphere during that collapse into the post-metaphysical age gets turned into more of a hypersphere during the modernist sort of Cézanne and all the you know post-impressionist painters moving on this where space gets folded back onto itself and seen as not so linear anymore, and then that hypersphere then completely breaks down into a landscape of foam in this contemporary art environment where, or this postmodern environment where the foam is composed of each individual bubbles that we're constructing. And I suppose what I was thinking in my mind was like, these are some really exciting thought images, and for me, I was going to designate, like, instead of having a min heap, I find that these interrelationships between these symbols are still important and still generate the meanings that have benefit for us. So I would. That's why I'm pointing towards this castle that's just floating in space, because these symbols all point to each other still, but they don't have any truth which holds them up, which is claimable. And you know, I mean, for me, the structure of this castle, it could perhaps be that we're in this castle and we're looking down and we can't see whether it has a foundation or not, but it may actually have a foundation. It's just we can't. It's in the dark for us. We can't know for sure if it has a foundation or not. So like that's the truth which we can never quite know. So I guess I'll keep going for a little bit. Hopefully I won't lose it. But so where are we? This I suppose this can be seen as like a sort of a Germanic philosophical habit where you try and make this sort of superstructure which holds everything. And for me, I find it incredibly useful, and I know that, but I do know that like there are pitfalls as to when someone believes that this is the absolute best way to look at the world. Like I see them more as a tool which can be used. And I mean, we're here in this world, and we have sort of unlimited freedom as to how we want to structure our thought picture of the world. So I guess there's a danger and liberation in that structuring. And we can go. There's other theorists such as Gebser and Ken Wilber who use sort of in this same tradition. But let's talk about that in another video. That's enough for now.